The following may contain offensive language, adult. Let's try this again. The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey, Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck. You may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host. There he is, where I can find him with my finger that I rub in a tight circle. Up and down. Circle. Up and down. Robert Winfree. Yay!
Hey, everybody. It's just Mark and I, so you can tell.
Did you like getting fingered by me?
I don't know if I'd rather have food poisoning again or not, but it's a tough call.
Yes, it's just me and Robert.
So Mark's going to be weirder than usual. I just also say I appreciate that we do the intro for the hearing impaired on the podcast. So to anyone out there who watches but has to do it with closed captioning or whatnot, we thank you for your patronage and for putting up with our nonsense. It's nice.
For those of you who are hearing impaired that continue to listen to this podcast, we especially thank you, given your difficulties with hearing things, that you actually bother to use. You actually bother to listen to us. You mean, you really have to be selective with what you can hear and can't hear. And yet, here you are, listening to us two ramble for an hour or so.
If there's anyone who's an expert on selective hearing, it's Mark.
What?
Uh-huh. Well, today, early matinee showing. So for any of you who happen to be joining us live, we appreciate you working us into your schedule in a slightly different way.
Yes, the obsession of the week is coming to visit us, so I had to block out my entire evening in order to accommodate said dinner guest.
Fair enough.
So what are we doing today, Toots?
Well, Mark, you see, a few months ago, you and me and Pat Mullen got together and we reviewed Samaritan.
We did.
It's on Amazon Prime. And we had to go back in the comic book setting to a much darker, grittier,
rainier,
rain-drenched.
Everything hot, raining, and on fire. And dark. So very dark. Grim dark, as a matter of fact.
With all the graffiti in the world.
And punks and goons. They were all roaming the streets, hungry for blood, like vampires.
Because that was the world of comics in the 90s, if you're not aware.
Yep.
Not in the world of comics, but also in the world of entertainment media in the 90s. There were the action movies. And Mark, it occurred to me as I was watching this film, we're discussing Plane.
Hang on. Now that you've said the magic word. Plane is a 2023 American action thriller film directed by Jean-François Richet, written by Charles Cumming and J.P. Davis, starring Gerard Butler. You able to use his natural Scottish accent. Good on you, Gerard. And Mike Coulter of Luke Cage fame, Yoson An, and Tony Goldwyn. The film centers around a pilot, Gerard Butler, allying with a prisoner, Mike Coulter, to save his passengers from a hostile territory they landed in for an emergency landing. Brought to you by Lionsgate, former studio.
It's still technically a studio. It's not Sony yet.
Lionsgate is currently on Nebraska Ave in Tampa, hiking up its skirt so you can see just a little bit of hair underneath, looking for someone to make a purchase.
There's a decent chance that's true. Friggin' Roland Emmerich, man.
Lionsgate has approached every car on Nebraska Avenue, stopping at a red light, asking if they want to have a good time. Whether it's, Disney, Universal, Netflix, Amazon, every car that stops at that light on Nebraska Ave, there's Lionsgate, boobs out, asking, do you want to have a good time?
Yeah, and really, like, what in order to sell the metaphor, you have to bring up the just terrible condition of their face after Roland Emmerich got through with them.
Yeah, Roland Emmerich was not a good John. Roland Emmerich may have thrown Lionsgate down a flight of stairs when he was done.
Before he started.
Do you want to have a good time? Do I? And baned Lionsgate over his knee.
Yeah, that's not wrong.
Anyway,
But it occurred to me as I was watching this movie that we don't get movies like this very often anymore. It's kind of a lost art due to the self-contained, mostly, I'm going to stress mostly, or at least attempted realism. Like, we don't get these anymore.
Not in the theater, no.
I mean, even streaming, you don't really get these. Like, you get them more on streaming, don't get me wrong. But the entire ethos of movie making seems to have moved away from stuff like this.
Here's what I'll tell you. It's there. It exists. Bruce Willis has been in all of them as of late.
No.
No, I'm making a joke, but I think the mid-tier straight up action movie that is devoid of other IP ends up being made by smaller studios for foreign distribution starring an old actor. And so they're not as good as the love and care from the time you're talking about, where there was a lot of these, isn't there anymore. The formula is there, the structure is there, the desire to make them is there, but the market is overseas, and so the effort and the craft isn't what it once was. It feels like they're not there, but they are. They're just shitty and not where you would think to find them.
And to the extent that they do exist on streaming services, half of them wind up with a stupid sci-fi bent.
Yeah.
I mean, for crying out loud, we talked about Outside the Wire, last year?
That was the first one I thought of, as a matter of fact, yeah.
And it's just kind of sad. I mean, I miss movies like this, And it also occurred to me, again, as I was kind of watching this, there's a lot of contemporary movies that get lumped into the action genre that aren't really action movies.
Right.
They just get it's a big budget blockbuster, it must be action. Well, no, those two things aren't necessarily synonymous. There's usually a lot of overlap, but there's not a guarantee that they go together.
I think for a lot of studios, so this thing was made, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
This thing was made for a budget of $25 million. And I think, if another metaphor here, I think Hollywood studios, and they're thinking about what they're going to greenlight and not greenlight, they've seen the Marvel movies, and I hate to keep beating up on the same child.
I am perfectly happy to help you kick this thing to death.
But it's probably the best example of this. Everyone has seen the strength of the Marvel movies. I mean, the 2012's Avengers really did change the world, and not for the better.
Not necessarily for the better. It's another instance of people taking the wrong lesson.
Well, here's what I was going with this. So it used to be you'd make a lot of movies for lower budgets with maybe one mid-tier star, maybe one big star, who knows, and you'd do a fair amount of business. Maybe you'd even do more than a fair amount of business. You'd do gangbusters, and you'd make your money, and you would keep the line moving, honey. Keep the line moving.
Yeah.
And then the Avengers happens, and the studios were like, "What if we just take what if instead of making a lot of product, we take a lot of money and put it into one product?" Now we're gambling.
Yeah.
And we're and so instead of like a steady stream of good to decent products to keep the movie industry afloat and vibrant and full, we're now instead of going to work, we're taking our paycheck and we're going to the casino and we're betting on black and we're hoping to have big money. And what happens more often than not is you come up red, you lose all your money, and now you don't have any money and you don't have any product, and everyone's wondering, what are we supposed to do? And then you have these other little...
Then you fire a bunch of people
Yeah.
who didn't actually have anything to do with the gambling.
Yeah.
You take out another loan, you invest in a different IP, and if you're Marvel, and even if you win more often than you lose, you still cut your VFX crew in half and then pay them nothing to do 4 times the work.
Right. So my point is, in the absence of competent movie studios putting a lot of product out there, doing the work, you're having the streamers do that. You're having, your Amazon Primes and Netflixes and Hulus. And I guess my point is that you don't have the planes like you used to, like the movie we're going to talk about today, because instead of being committed to doing the work, they'd rather just gamble. Because on the occasion that you gamble and you win big, you get an Avatar the way of the water. So it's like you're willing to... I mean, look at Warner Brothers this year. What was it? 4 or 5 last year, rather. 4 or 5 movies released. Look at Disney. Disney released more movies than Warner Brothers, but almost everything that wasn't a Marvel movie and Avatar bombed. Compare that to Universal.
Well, and even, I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but even with Disney, if you factor in the advertising that they had to do for a bunch of those, a lot of those Marvel stuff was not nearly as profitable as it looked like.
Right. When we compared the output, Universal is the only one making movies. Universal.
Yeah.
Universal is the only one in the business of making a wide array of movies for multiple audiences, and not... I mean, they do a fair bit of leaning on their own IP too, but not like Disney and not like Warner Brothers did.
Well, Universal and Paramount both do kind of a little bit of the same thing. They've scaled back from the, hey, let's throw $600 million at something between advertising and production, and then hope that we get a $1 billion movie.
Right, but you can't. But again,
instead they threw like 150 million at Babylon, and we all laughed.
So I guess my point is, so that we can move forward, is that the desire to gamble and hope you hit an Avatar is, more than anything else, killing the movie industry. And then we're dependent on the little studios, whether it's streamers or not, like Lionsgate, to put out a movie like Plane. So you have the little studios that are still doing movies the way that we're used to, the way that used to make money. The problem is Lionsgate can't afford another fucking Moonfall. And if Lionsgate goes, that's one less factory putting out decent product. And that's no good for anybody. I mean, it just in like applied basic economic terms, the more factories that shut down, the less jobs there are, the less product there is, the more monopolies there are, the less products that are available that are worth the shit.
Yeah, it's very briefly in that same vein, like the notion that, and people were making the argument about superhero movies, that it's just like the modern version of the Western, which had a period of domination at the Hollywood box office and then faded away. And none of that comparison holds water when you actually break it down, for a variety of reasons. One is superhero movies or comic book movies, superhero movies, they make up a disproportionate amount of the total box office relative to how many are released, because there's not that many.
Right.
But they take up a giant chunk of the box office, and superhero movies are released by like 2 studios.
If you're not counting the independents.
But
even a lot of independent stuff ends up on streamers anyway.
Yeah. Again, it's just, kind of the state of movies right now, and we can only just hope that the market somehow corrects, but then again, there's still idiots going to see Way of Water for reasons that are utterly beyond human comprehension.
So to transition into the plot of this thing, we almost didn't do this movie because I tend
close.
to not. Well, I tend to not do for the sake of the show smaller studio stuff. And Robert was like, "You're part of the problem, then, aren't you? We have a free week. We have a week where there isn't a big budget IP, a big studio release. We have a week that we're not even having to deal with a big streamer, and it's right there. There's poor old Plane. She's at the Sadie Hawkins dance, but no, and she's looking around for a boy to dance with, and we won't dance with her. And there's Robert Winfree going, for God's sakes, dance with the moderately pretty girl. She's waiting for you. And I'm like, gonna walk over to the hot goth over here. No, stupid. That ends badly every single I'm projecting again. The point is
For the record, though, it really does. Every time.
All right, so
one would think at some point we would learn from our mistakes.
Let's go ahead and do the plot synopsis for this moderately pretty girl at the Sadie Hawkins dance.
Well, also for the record, the other reason
also, while you that Derpy Entertainment is with us on YouTube and has put up a couple of comments here. He says, yes, Plane describes itself indeed as Plane. And so it's Air Force One. That's not quite Air Force One.
It's not even close to Air Force One.
But we appreciate Derpy hanging out with us. Hi, Derpy.
All right. Sorry, the last thing about why we almost didn't review this movie. In theory, there was a Guy Ritchie movie that was supposed to come out this last week.
That was the big reason. I wanted to do the Guy Ritchie movie, and then the Guy Ritchie movie apparently didn't come out in the United States, so
it got bumped around or whatnot. And frankly, after the last couple of Guy Ritchie movies, I might have argued for Plane anyway. I mean, look, you and I enjoyed Wrath of Man just fine, but before that was the one with Matthew McConaughey and Charlie Hunnam, who's The Gentleman.
We like The Gentleman.
I like that less the more I think about it. Let me just put it that way.
I might have inflated my enjoyment of that movie just because of Hugh Grant.
You do have a weird thing for Hugh Grant. Like, you are every woman in her like late 30s to early 40s going, oh, he's just so charmingly befuddled.
I have a weird thing for that type of gay guy character.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Leave me alone with my fetishes and tell me about this plane, this huge throbbing plane.
Yeah, look, your desire to be Hugh Grant, to be as confident with your, to be, you want to play someone who's married to Daniel Craig in a Netflix movie that I will be tearing apart next week, for the record.
Yep. All right, dude.
Have you seen that?
I have not watched Glass Onion yet. Dude, actually, in the next week, I have to finish watching Doom Patrol, the second half of Resident Alien, Generation Kill, and Glass Onion. I don't know when the hell I'm going to do all this.
I'm sure you'll find time.
I'm being told by the Peanut Gallery that I should just stay home from work and not have a life.
Life sucks. TV's better.
Okay, apparently what I've been invited to do is sit with one of my housemates, and we're just going to watch TV for the next week and a half.
Well, good luck to you.
Plane, go.
So Plane follows primarily the character played by Gerard Butler of Captain Brody Torrance. He's an airline pilot. He's trying to get from Singapore to Honolulu to spend New Year's with his daughter. His wife passed away a few years ago. His daughter's I think she's going to school in Maui, was kind of what was intimated, or she's there for some kind of break. And they haven't been able to get together all that often. And he's looking forward to spending the holidays with his kid. And as they are going to start this it's late. It's over New Year's Eve. They are informed they will be transporting a prisoner, Mark Coulter, who is being extradited from where whatever various government agencies found him in Bali. They are extraditing him to the United States to stand trial for murder. So he gets to sit at the back of the plane with a guard and be quiet as they fly to Tokyo, where he'll be dropped off, and then he takes a different plane. There's, the co-pilot, there's our stewardesses, there's, the dozen or so passengers, and they take off and they hit inclement weather like you do. after warning the people in charge of their flight, like their flight plan, like, hey, maybe we should go around the big storm. And our stupid penny pincher goes, it'll dissipate by the time you get there. We think you can. We don't want to spend the extra money on fuel. Again, like you do. So they fly into the weather. They try to get around. They try to get up and over it. They get struck by lightning, causing all kinds of mechanical problems. And Gerard Butler must, in a masterful display of piloting, mind you, land this commercial airliner on a dirt mining road on an island in the Philippines, which he does safely. Like, the only two people that die during this entire thing is one stewardess and the guard who unbuckled during a chaotic descent, and at that point you're just asking for it.
Yeah, it was one of those where I don't want to get into the crash just yet. I want to let you finish what you're doing, but one of the great strengths of this movie is that they don't write everyone totally stupid, but occasionally they write stupid.
It stands out. It stands out more because everyone else is not that stupid.
Right.
For these two people to go.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's one of those, like, does it survive the pitch meeting test? Where in the pitch meeting test is essentially, why is that happening? So the movie can happen. Too much of that, and the movie's too stupid, and then we give it the boys don't cry treatment. A little bit of that, and we go, and we just let it slide.
Yeah. And I don't even think, the crazy thing about that, I don't even think it's necessary for the movie to happen, for those people to die. Like, it's just, let's inflate the body count a little bit. Which, don't get me wrong, high body counts don't bother me one iota. Anyway, they make this, desperation landing. They get everyone out of the plane, only to discover that with a little bit of, math and piloting skills, well, we might be on this one island here. And it's a bad island because the people who run this island are militia members and separatists and revolutionaries, and they've driven out the Filipino government. And it's Lord of the Flies out here. Like, well, that could be bad. So Gerard Butler takes Mike Coulter, and they go off to try and find some kind of phone or radio or something they can use to call for help, because they need that. Our co-pilot stays behind and starts fiddling around with the wiring and the electrical systems on the plane to try and get some kind of power back to it. Ultimately, he is successful in that respect, but the local Filipino militia, our separatists, did in fact see and get word of the giant airplane that landed on it in the middle of nowhere in the jungle, and being, violent terrorists, they decide, okay, hostages, yay. So they go after them. There's a bit of an action scene when Gerard Butler does find a phone. He's able to get it to somewhat work. He tries to call out, can't really get through to his to the company that owns the plane that he was flying. Does get through to his daughter, gives her some information, she relays it. They're attacked by a couple of these militiamen. Gerard Butler kills one. Luke Cage happily kills a couple of others. But at the end of all of this, our passengers, 2 of them are killed, the rest of them are abducted, and our 2 heroes decide we have to go save them. It's the best thing to do. It's the honorable thing to do. So, a little bit of infiltration, some knife deaths, a couple of sledgehammers to the face that make Triple H go, geez, you know how to work the thing.
Yeah, that was, I was having Violent Night flashbacks.
I like a good sledgehammer usage. It's an underutilized weapon in cinema.
When I finally, and I want the FBI to pay attention to this, like, I'm really here to just make your life easier at this point. When I finally do snap and kill everyone in this house, I'm going slow. Are you back yet?
I don't know if that's you or me. Hang on, let me check. My internet looks good.
Yeah, no, that was a StreamYard issue, I think.
Okay. Apologies for the technical issues there, but yeah, when Mark goes, like,
Yeah,
the first wave is going to be done with gunfire, but all the finish work, that's going to be done with a hammer. All right, how are we doing here?
I think we're okay.
Okay. Again, apologies.
All right, you good?
Yeah. I don't know if that was you or me. I think my internet's been fine. So.
Yeah, maybe it was my end. It might have just been a StreamYard. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Anyway, the joke was that when I finally snap and murder everyone in this house,
our joke about Mark's family annihilation followed by mass murder spree.
Yes, is definitely going to be with a hammer. That's going to be the weapon of choice.
And so, like, the first wave is going to be done with gunfire, and then all the finish work is just hammer.
Sure. Anyway,
they rescue the passengers. They go to make a run for the plane, but it's a little bit difficult. Fortunately, the airline in question has hired a bit of a fixer who sent in mercenaries who show up at the opportune time. And I'm even
it's a odd nick of time, as it were.
I'm not even mad about it. Like, that was actually kind of like, that was like the entire setup for that was well done enough to earn the payoff.
And well, at least they weren't on the side of the enemy in this one.
Yeah, that was a nice.
It was like, oh look, they sent in help, and they helped because they were helpful. Terrific.
Yeah. Who'd have thought? So our mercenary group, again, we get a bit of a firefight. They retreat to the plane. Bigger firefight. They turn the plane around. They take off. Mike Coulter, rather than go back and face criminal charges, he sticks around on the island, but he steals the $500,000 that there's always an emergency fund when you're dropped into that part of the world if you're a mercenary group, to buy things, to try and bribe your way out of problems. Like, that's a real thing. So he swipes the $500,000. Provides a last bit of cover fire, then heads off into the jungle to resume his life on the run. Gerard Butler is able to sort of get this beaten down, shot up, half fuel emptied plane without doors because they had to explosively decompress. He's able to sort of get it just far enough to a safe island with civilization and running water and ambulances and fire trucks. Mostly landed on the tarmac, and the movie ends with him calling his daughter, going, "Yeah, you were right. I'm going to be a little bit late." Again, there's not a whole lot here. In fact, one of my big critiques of this movie is there's not quite enough story here. Like, there's not really enough going on.
But that's how I remember action movies of this ilk being. They were setups for long action sequences, which I'm okay with. I went on a date to go see this, and she was asking me like what I thought of the movie, and I was like, it was slight, but the thing you came for, the reason you showed up to this was not the story, it was the action sequences. So as long as the action sequences are well done, and they are, and they're knitted together well with a story that is at least coherent, it's held up by decent acting, and it's consistent within its own universe. You got a winner here. And hang on, what am I looking at? You see, we have money. Yeah. Is that what I'm reading? Woohoo! We can eat. Like $300 or $400. Okay, cool. Sorry,
someone off screen has pulled the three-eyed fish out of Lake Springfield, and woohoo, we eat tonight.
Yes. I was just told that we won't starve. So someone around here is finally earning their keep.
I just spent $200 on food.
Yeah, but what have you done for me lately?
I spent $200 on food and then cooked it.
Moving on. So anyway,
$200 on food gets you like a day and a half.
Yeah, I can't. You can't talk to her. So hang on, she's having a rough day. She probably doesn't need two men ganging up on her, or does she? Moving on.
Also, for the record, never.
Noted. Anyway, what I was trying to tell you before you distracted me was that the stool for this, the legs on the stool are not that hard to accomplish. Good action sequences, competent acting, and a coherent story. You knit the action sequences together, with some good you knit them together. There was a word I was going for, like, we say it all the time on here. Doesn't matter. It'll come to me later, and I'll just blurt it out. Connective tissue. I got it. Connective tissue.
There we go.
You have some good connective tissue that doesn't have the audience going, wait, what the hell? And you've got a solid movie here. And this goes back to the initial conversation we were having about the art of making a solid movie. Because not everything needs to be an Avatar, and not everything should be, what was it? What was the one with Chris Hemsworth that we hated last year?
You're gonna have to be way more specific.
The one with Miles Teller. It was part of our triple feature we did.
Oh, Spiderhead.
Spiderhead, thank you. Yeah. So, like, don't aim for Spiderhead either. But you don't always have to,
Lizard brain Miles Teller.
I mean, go watch Moneyball and hear what's his nuts talk about guys that always get on base. Like, sometimes that's all you need is the movie to get on base. You don't need to hit a home run. Don't strike out. Get on base. And Plane is a very get on base movie. And that's why, I don't think it's going to make my top 10 for the year, but it's solid as fuck, man. The thing that I again, if you think about the action sequences as the top draw for this movie, and I was thinking about how it was done, it's been a while since I've seen Commando, and I might be inflating my memory of it, but that's what I was kind of thinking of. Like, let's put our heroes in a jungle, give them some machine guns, put some baddies out there. They have to be foreign. They cannot be white. At the time.
Well,
in this movie too, like I was
the setting for this movie necessitates that more than, like,
they could have put it in the Ukraine for all we knew, and then not release it because the Ukraine war. But my point is, like, think about, you're arguing with me, but you're wrong, because think about Top Gun. Top Gun, they went out of their way to like, we're gonna bomb this installation.
We're gonna bomb the enemy.
Yeah, the enemy in this foreign place. It's like, doesn't tell you anything. They're like, are they white, black, Arab? What are we? Are we in China? We're in a foreign hostile territory. Great. This is like
that worked in the 80s because it was half the world. It doesn't work anymore.
Well, it's like the joke about the modern media, when it's one type of person, just like the assailant was wearing a black overcoat and boots, when it's another one, it's just like he was an African-American man, 6'5", and didn't pay his child support. Like there's times where the news is really descriptive and other times where they're completely not, depending on which one we're favoring at the time and what year. And so, like, Top Gun Maverick went out of its way to be like, and we don't want to offend anyone, so it's in it's from Parts Unknown. The only occupant of Parts Unknown was the Ultimate Warrior. Here they didn't even like. This is one of those movies where I can't wait till we get to the Rotten Tomatoes thing, because I guarantee you someone's going to complain about how unwoke this movie is.
Someone's going to complain about the xenophobia, right?
Oh my God, a white guy running around shooting Filipinos. How racist. It's like, and hear me out here.
And to be fair, like, Mark Coulter shot a lot more people than Gerard
Butler. We're gonna ignore that, see?
Or the fact that the leader of the mercenary group was also black, that showed up and shot a lot of people. Like,
right. But let's,
or the Asian guy with the Barrett that's sniping these people. Like, look, we're laughing because we know how stupid reviewers are. Like, that's why we're laughing here.
Yeah, and then I want to see how many people are like stay home and watch Velma. Don't go see Plane.
Look, watch Velma if you want brain cancer.
So anyway, craft elements. I want to talk about the action sequences, especially, and I wish we had like Andrew Graham here to kind of tell me about this gun, but the one gun that they were using where they were shooting through the truck.
That's a Barrett 50 caliber sniper rifle.
Yeah, that was great. That was the high point of the movie for me.
This is one of the very few instances I've ever seen in film with that weapon system being deployed properly.
Yeah, that was great.
That's what that thing does. You shoot out engine blocks with it. And yeah,
So
I'm hiding behind the car. You mean a couple of thin sheets of metal with this thing coming at you?
right,
No.
and then the impact of this thing when everyone's getting blown backwards. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I nudged my date. I was like, that's amazing. Like, if I saw nothing else in this movie, just that scene alone would be enough for me to give it a high recommendation. That sequence was immaculate. And I'll tell you, it's going to sound funny, and I don't know if you'll even agree with it, but I think it's hard to create novel action sequences now. I think actually one of our big criticisms is, more of the same. Even in like your John Wicks and like your gun fu type movies, some of it after a while, at least for me, becomes redundant. Boy, have I never seen that before. I have never seen that particular armament do what it did to the people it did it to and have it look as cool as it did.
The closest you might have gotten prior to this was the sniper character in Rambo, the fourth Rambo movie.
Yeah.
Uses one of these, and unfortunately, that's not a gun or a weapon system that you would ever take on that kind of a mission,
right?
Because that thing is heavy. Like, so the fact that they have it where they land and deploy it when everyone's coming to them, thumbs up. That's accurate. Right. You would not take that thing hiking through the jungle with you ever.
Yeah. Let's just Jesse Ventura.
Even okay, if you're Jesse Ventura, you can take the minigun and
right.
1,000 rounds of ammo, which miraculously weighs nothing.
And make sure you're calling everyone a slack-jawed faggot. That's important.
Well, especially because come on, man. They clearly did not want to become a sexual tyrannosaurus like Jesse the Body Ventura,
which is what you do with your dip and chew. You know, that's what it's there for. Anywho. I want to talk about Mike Coulter.
Love that movie.
It's so good. I want to talk about Mike Coulter for a second because I really love the way they wrote his character, and what I mean by that is, he's on the run. He has a 15-year-old charge. They don't really give you a lot of details as to why he's being transported, where he's going, or what it's for, or anything else like that. All you needed to know was he committed a murder. It was 15 years ago. He's been on the run. They need to get him to XYZ place. That's why he's there. And they don't make him one of the monsters on Con Air rather. They don't
I also love that movie.
It's a great movie, but like again, that was a collection of like wild animals.
Oh yeah.
They don't make him a monster. They don't make him sympathetic.
He's not one of these I was wrongfully accused.
Right.
What was like, he just said no. I got to the extent that he talks about it. It was I was young, was in a bad situation. And I made a choice, and then I chose to ran after that. Like,
right. So, that's what I liked about it because again, we live in we talk about how movies are dumb, but I think what we sometimes neglect to mention is how they're written because they think the audience is dumb. That's a big problem I had with a lot of movies we talked about last year, where it felt like the writing was dumb because they felt like the audience couldn't keep up. Like this was too much movie for them. And given some of the reviewers that we've read over the years, they're not totally wrong, but it would be nice every once in a while to be given the benefit of the doubt. And Mike Coulter's character very much does that, where it's like all you needed to, we need a guy for Gerard Butler to buddy up with and shoot bad guys. He needs to be a badass. We'll give him just enough character for that and let Mike Coulter do the rest. Boy, is that nice, where we are essentially given enough room as an actor. This is the thing I wanted to comment on because I don't think enough people really focus on it. Sometimes characters are written too tightly. You know, their clothing is too tight. Everything doesn't fit right. You know, skin and fat is just sort of bulging out. There's nothing for the actor to do. The actor to do. There's no room to play. They are like, here's your character. This is what you do. Run towards that green box. Yell loudly. That's it. Now go home, Ewan McGregor. And there's
like you could also substitute anyone acting in Marvel these days. Again, I'm going to kick that whenever I can.
Felt like beating up on George Lucas for a little bit. Could we not beat up the same kid in every show? Like, let's spread it around a bit. So, we talked about this with one of our reviews last year. Actors play. This is why people become actors. It
is professional make-believe.
Right. They want to. You have a director to rein people in. Good actors are going to go for it. They're going to try things. I always bring this one example up, but I think it's a really good one. So it's my go-to. Bamboozled with Damon Wayans by Spike Lee. and Damon Wayans is like going for it. Like Damon Wayans might not be the world's greatest actor, but he tries. He's playing. He's trying to do things to make the character interesting. And there's Spike Lee going, "No, Damon, you can't do that accent." Or another great example that I've heard, Johnny Depp in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies wanting to tell Gorvidal that he wanted to ugly up the character more, and them going, "No, this is a fucking Disney pick, not a Wendy's. You have to look somewhat camera ready, you crazy person. You can't ugly yourself up. You're the main character." Things like that. But I like that. I like that collaborative tension between the players and the directors. It creates really nice moments. And so credit where credit's due. They gave Mike Coulter some room to play and bring some brooding gravitas to this character where I think somebody would have overwritten it. Gerard Butler isn't Superman, which was nice.
Yep.
Gerard Butler was very much a, he's the kind of character that is sorely not being written right now, where he is a competent man that is put in extraordinary circumstances and he has to rise to the occasion. He is capable, but that's not what he does, but he's forced to because of the circumstances.
Well,
how often do we see that now?
Very infrequently. And he's also competent, but he's not, like you said, he's not Superman. He can't do everything. In fact, he struggles a bit when it comes to the violence. He doesn't shoot that many people in this movie. Like he assists Mike Coulter in doing it several times.
Right.
But he's not the one out there. He's not happily machine gunning down a wave of enemies.
Have you watched Kaleidoscope yet?
No.
Okay. So like, as opposed to Jai Courtney, who apparently is the T-1000, where it just takes endless amounts of damage and keeps coming.
I hate
somehow.
That
guy. I know you do.
Plank of wood, Jai Courtney.
Keep going.
Wood. Mahogany.
I'm about to give you wood. Please keep going.
You and I both know I don't invoke that response.
So anyway, since you refuse to cooperate. Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
First of all, I love the fact that he got to just talk normal for himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like he starts speaking with like his natural Scottish accent, and I was like, woo! Like, oh, Gerard. Where did that come from? I love the ease at which this movie was shot. Where like, just let these people be themselves. Like, let Gerard be Gerard. Let Mike be Mike. Let's make some magic happen. It is. If somebody were to tell me like, what's the best thing about Plane? It is the simplest. It is simplicity, writ large.
Yeah,
it's really nice because so much of what we do is so big and bombastic and so nonsensical that it's nice to just not even just to come back to like, the old, as we were saying before, the old standard movies for guys who like movies action flick. Just the simplicity of this movie. Setup, middle chapter, payoff, good guys win, bad guys are punished. We had fun along the way and we learned a thing or two about ourselves. Great. Why is this so hard? Why is this so difficult?
Do you want there's a couple of reasons. There's a couple of reasons. One, I'm convinced of this. Like you mentioned, most movie writing these days is assumes the audience is dumb.
Yeah.
I'm convinced most writers now have the opinion of their audience that Michael Bay does as a director. Like Michael Bay hates his audience.
Sure. Give us hell, Quimby.
So I'm partially convinced of that. Like there's just we don't like you. We don't like anything about you people.
And we want to take your money, so.
But please give us money.
Yeah.
Then there's, but how do we then there's the just hunger for ongoing IP that just never seems to go away. Again, like Rian Johnson, I might disagree with on several things, and I like most of his work. But I think he's exactly right when he said, again, this was a quote that got taken out of context when he was talking in that interview he did recently. We're like, oh, he wanted to give Star Wars a Viking funeral. Like, no. He said movies in general today lean way too heavily on, please let's generate an IP. Whatever happened to movies
having
that
an
just
ending.
end.
Right. And he was like, I like the concept of a Viking funeral where everything, you know, it has a definitive end. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Megan doesn't upload herself to the cloud for a future sequel, you know, and I understand why the Midnight's Edge people and the critical drinkers of the world jumped all over that because they don't like what he did with Star Wars. But Rian Johnson's also not wrong when he says too much of the business of movies now is how much can we milk this thing for? What else can we do with it? How, you know, how long can we drag this out for to make as much money as possible? No one is seemingly concerned with the art anymore. At least not at that level. You know, you want art,
I mean,
you go to an A24 movie.
I mean, you've heard the stories about, you know, the people who direct, I'll put direct in air quotes, Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so we've already shot most of the action sequences. And this is all written, and you're going to be doing it on this particular set of green screens.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
it reminds me of like Patton Oswalt's joke about doing voiceover work, and he would do touch-ups, and they were like, okay, you know, and he was describing what a touch-up was, and they were like, no, we're already done shooting this Pixar movie. What your job is to write some funny stuff to make the off-screen stuff sound funny, or whatever, however way he described it. So he was like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to do this. And he gave some funny examples, but to go over your point, he made a point of saying the studios were calling him in after things were shot and rendered and set for film. They just needed him to do punch up. That's what it was. It was called punch up.
Yeah.
They just needed him to punch something up for them because I guess the scene didn't work the way that it was done. And he was like, wow, there is no consideration for any art here. It's literally just like, this scene lacks something and we want it to be funny. Throw a pie in someone's face. Like there's no coherency to it. There's no vision. It's just what can we shove into this scene to keep the rabble laughing. Last thing, and then I want to get through the craft review of Plane here so we can move on. I think, like I said, the action sequence is there's a brutality to it. This is what I was thinking about, like with Commando. There's a brutality to it that is sorely missed in modern action movies because I think,
boy, do they.
Well, the brutality is safe for horror movies now. That's the only place where you're allowed to dismember people. I'm like, there used to be a time where you could watch an action movie and watch someone get fucking blown in half.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there used to be a time where
nowadays, if it's not John Wick, then you don't get. Or this is one of the things that stood out to me about a bunch of the Gareth Edwards movies that came out of again, it's Southeast Asia. Stuff like The Raid or The Night Comes for Us. Like it's a straight action movie, but there's a real nice visceral violence to the martial arts violence that's taking place.
Do you remember when Bret Hart talked about in Wrestling with Shadows? Have you noticed that I kick someone square in the face and you don't see a mark on them? Mm-hmm. If you've done combat sports, I've done combat sports. You've actually hit people. I've hit people. When you hit someone, even if you don't necessarily do a tremendous amount of damage, you still leave like a print of your hand on their face. Still, like your face still your blood rushes to that.
It's usually discoloration, yeah.
Right. And Bret Hart was like, have you noticed nothing like that happens? I'm kicking somebody squat in the face, because he's talking about like the safety in which he wrestles, but how real he makes it look. And I was thinking about that in terms of film. Like Plane did a really good job of making the violence look visceral without it being gory. And there's that fine line, but it was there. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Where so much of modern movies, by comparison, either it's a Bret Hart thing where everyone's like hitting each other, with fucking nail spike bats, and somehow no one takes any damage, or everyone's head comes off, and the guts come flying out, and there's a guy throwing intestines at you and live in 3D. And it's like, I would love a middle ground. I would love something firmly in the middle where when someone gets hit, they take damage. It hurts. I was watching.
There should be repercussions to getting shot. just throwing it out there.
I was watching a TikTok, and it was a clip of a scene from, I think, the last season of Ozark, where Jason Bateman hit a guy in the face, and he's not a puncher, he's not a fighting guy, but he was defending his woman, terrible Laura Linney, and he punches a guy in the face. And if you don't condition your hands, this is why you do drills on bags and stuff like that. If you do not condition your hand and you punch someone squat in the face, where you make contact with their skull, If you don't know how to throw a punch, you're going to break your hand. Frankly, if you know how to throw a punch, you're going to break your hand. See half the boxers in professional boxing.
Yeah, when you throw a punch, the number you would not believe. You might, Mark, but for people out there, you wouldn't believe how many people just don't know how to make a fist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, where to position your fingers, where to put your thumb. You know, when you throw it, what do you do?
The number of people who will give you one of these.
Well, the other side of that, like keeping
this.
your wrist straight. I can't tell you, like just working with my kids.
Here's the other thing, guys. Mm-hmm. People, when they start punching, they do this.
Right.
They punch like this.
Yep.
Guess what happened? Look at where the stress riser is. This needs to be flat, so the force travels all the way back here. This can absorb it. The other thing, punch with these two knuckles. These two hurt them. These two hurt you.
Yeah.
So my point is, you're gonna break something. This is the most broken, like that bone. That's the one that breaks.
Working with my kids, like the thing that I always teach them is like, you know, this is the end point to the weapon. The weapon is here, and if this doesn't line up here, you're gonna hurt yourself. The punching like this isn't gonna do you any good.
That's another way people do it. It's just dumb.
Yeah. So, you know, and I've always talked to my kids about swiveling your hips. You know, like
power comes from the earth. Like that power starts when you push off the ground.
But Pat and I talked about how like Mike Tyson, you know, his uppercut, you know, he pulled that from the core of the earth.
Oh yeah.
When he swiveled those hips, it was like he was like doing, you know, the lambada. And that's where he got so much of his power from. You know, it helped that he was shorter than the average heavyweight. But the point is, with all of this, it was nice to see a movie that showed some gritty violence. And like I said, I was there with another woman. I was there with a date, and we both kind of had that same reaction. And I think this is important to say out loud. People long for this sort of thing. People want that experience. I don't think people know that in Hollywood anymore. I think people think all people want is either splatterhouse, you know, intestines coming at you, or they want violence like you would see in Marvel or Star Wars. And nope. A large portion of us aren't getting what we need from the movie industry, which is that middle of the road visceral violence that can pass as realistic, which I think Plane by comparison excelled in. And I'll give you the final word.
Well, I mean, just speaking of realistic stuff in action, again, like the first John Wick movie has that in spades. It's part of the reason it was so successful was everything about it felt very real. Again, it's stylized, of course.
Sure.
But it feels real. And then, 2 and 3 and no, suddenly we're just way off over there.
Have you seen the trailer for John Wick 4?
I have.
Oi.
I look forward to him punching a camel like Arnold.
I mean, who doesn't want to punch a camel? I mean, the camels are fuckers, but still.
You've seen how strong a camel is, just for the record?
Sure.
There's a video of a camel that bites a guy around the head, full-grown man.
Yeah.
And then just effortlessly, with just its neck, lifts him up and tosses him like 5 feet away. Just, nope.
I was into watching foreign cooking videos for a while, and they ate up a whole camel.
Oh, yeah. Camel tastes pretty good.
Speaking of tasting pretty good, what else you got to say about planes? We can move on.
I think, again, if I'm going to level some criticism at this, when I say there's not enough story here, there's some cutaway stuff that doesn't make sense. I understand we're trying to break up, some of the movie, some of the tension.
Sorry, I'm laughing because every scene when they're in the office and you have the one guy, the Burke of the movie, he's not the Greek, he's Vondas in The Wire season 2. God, his character, he's the only other character written in this movie dumb for the sake of plot.
Yeah, there's this weird nonsensical bit of conflict that exists for all of one scene between the flight owner and the fixer. He's like, okay, we've got our mercenaries in there, get on the plane and get out of here. And he's like, no, the plane should stay where it is. Like, you already know the Filipino government is not going to do anything, but what if it blows up? Like, it's literally the dumbest point of conflict in this entire movie.
Yeah,
is for some reason, there's no reason for it.
It was like Independence Day. It's like, the Air Force pilot and the cable guy have this crazy plan. I hear you, and it's not like we have a lot of options, but I don't like them, so we don't want to do it. And it's like, Why are you arguing about this? Like, no rational person would have argued at that point, considering half the world had been blown up by that point in the movie.
Well, again,
any stupid idea would have been a good idea.
The Secretary of Defense in that movie is there to be a punching bag, and we're okay.
Yeah, no, obviously, but that's stupid for the sake of being stupid to move the plot along.
And here, like, it doesn't even move the plot. This is like he goes, but the plane might explode, or they get machine gunned to death by the militia.
Right? Yeah. Again, a stupid plan is better than no plan.
Yeah, it's just really dumb.
Yeah.
So I don't think they had enough like B plot and B issue.
Yeah.
To work with here. I mean, to make the somewhat obvious contrast point, the 90s movie, late 90s, early 2000s movie, Air Force One, starring Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman.
Ah, yes, the one that Derpy brought up.
It has
right here.
Yes.
Hi, Derpy.
That has a B plot in the Situation Room in the White House, with the cabinet members potentially voting the president to be out of power because he is compromised. And this is, I mean, first of all, this is a thing that can happen. It's happened a few times in American history. It's a thing. But like the B plot does a lot of that. Like we're playing with these other characters and how they're interacting and what's going on there, and there's some interesting stuff happening. Here there's not. And I think it's kind of a weakness of the film. Butler and Coulter have good chemistry. I could have done with a little more, to be candid. Like I needed them being, buddies a little bit more than I got, but
see, I don't agree with that, but I'm not gonna. Well, it's not. I think that's a personal preference thing, not a class issue.
Yeah, it probably. I mean, bear in mind, when I say them being buddies, I don't need them like forming this great lifelong friendship. I don't need them pouring out their souls to each other. Like, so Critical Drinker released a video not too long ago, one of his latest in the series of why modern movies suck. And there's some of the stuff he brings up in this one that I don't agree with, but it's like one of the reasons modern movies suck is because modern Hollywood struggles to actually write male characters.
Okay. I need to address that because Andrew and I have been talking about it all week. Critical Drinker's not all the way wrong, but he's also got a skewed perspective because he's only talking about major IP, pop culture stuff. Yeah. He's talking about the Lucasfilms, Marvel's, DC stuff of the world. Because if you look at the wide breadth of stuff that's out there, plenty of men are written just fine. But if you're only looking at pop culture, if you're only looking at Lucasfilm, Marvel, DC.
You mean if we're okay, hang on. So to play devil's advocate slightly. Mm-hmm. So if we're only looking at all the movies that most people see.
Right. and completely ignore primetime television.
Well, like everyone else, primetime television is barely a thing anymore.
It doesn't change the fact that if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? If people are writing competent, intelligent, mature men who act like men we've grown up around, those of us who grew up around men, and I know not a lot of people have, and that's half the problem.
No kidding.
But they're there, but no one's watching those shows. Or if they're watching them, they're not part of the national. They're not on Twitter. They're not on Twitter talking about, I watch Grey's Anatomy. Men are fine. Like
men are not, for the record, men are not fine in Grey's Anatomy.
It's the first thing I thought of. But Yellowstone. Okay. No one's on Twitter talking about the virtue of men in cinema after they've watched Yellowstone. Those people went to bed. They have jobs in the morning. The people on Twitter are either hating or singing the praises of Velma. That's the conversation happening. So to go back to the Drinker's point about Lucasfilm, Marvel, DC, etc., not having men who act like men, I think is valid, but you can't paint with that white a brush either, and he doesn't acknowledge that in that film, and I needed to say that out loud. I've been saying it to Andrew all week.
Now, it's fair, and again, there's some stuff he brings up in there that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in the hands of different writers, like
Mhm.
a big chunk of the middle portion of this movie is Mike Coulter going on and on about how growing up a poor black child.
Yes. Growing up in the streets of Baltimore.
I was gonna go with rural Mississippi, but fair. It would have to be Mississippi or Louisiana because he's vaguely French.
Oh my God. He can't just be from Baltimore to make my wire joke.
No.
Ugh. You know,
Mark, all black people do not live in Harlem or Baltimore.
That's a lie. And in BMO, we aim to hit a nigga. You heard?
I mean, you can aim all you want. I saw the accuracy of most of those people in The Wire. It wasn't good.
I not only ruined Christmas by demanding children scissor me, but I was also but a few days later, I was chasing them around the house, asking them what they do in Baltimore. And my daughter had just about enough of me.
I'm surprised it took her this long.
She's had enough of me for a while. Moving on.
Anyway, like the point there being, these two guys, they form a bit of a bond.
Yeah.
Because of the circumstances they find themselves in. I could have used a touch more of that. Again, I don't need a lot more, but there's a bit at the end when Coulter tells, Butler, like, I'm not getting on that plane with you.
Right.
And Butler goes, I know, good luck.
Yeah.
And
in a dumber movie, they fight. And Coulter dies.
Or they hug.
Yeah.
Or again, like Butler breaks down talking about his dead wife at one point. He bear in mind, he never brings that up to Coulter. Like we, the audience, know because he talks briefly about it with his co-pilot when they're, like, okay, nice to meet you. First time flying together. So who are you? What do you do? Like, oh yeah, I'm so-and-so. I'm from here. Got a picture of my family. Like, oh, cool. Got a daughter. Like, oh, so your wife? No, she passed a few years ago. And like, that's it, which is actually like entirely appropriate, like getting to know you conversation,
right?
One degree or another. But he never brings it up to Coulter. He's never like, no. The thing he says is, his motivation at one point is like, I've got a daughter, and I plan on getting back to her. And again, that makes sense, but there's a lot that's left for the audience. Like,
right.
That we
I was going to say,
like,
what normal person in that situation would have been like, I'm going to let everyone die and live with, and I'm okay with the guilt of that. Like most people not named Kelsey would do the mental calculus of I cannot live with the guilt of a dozen dead people on my conscience. I have an opportunity to try to save them. I will. But he doesn't have that like hero moment necessarily. Yeah. He doesn't have that like, if it was Zack Snyder, dun dun, as the camera pans up from shoe to brow, as he gets ready for the fight. He doesn't have that Rambo moment of the tight close-up of the shoelaces angrily being tied together and the knife violently being put into its sheath.
That's Commando, not Rambo, but okay.
It's the same fucking scene. They do the same thing in First Blood Part 2 when he's gearing up for the mission. But my point being, like, you're right. There's enough room and breath left in the audience experience to go, we don't want you to leave them behind. We're with you. Go do the hero thing. We're with you, Gerard Butler. Yeah. We're not questioning your decision. And the movie doesn't make him so obvious about it, so like blatant to where he has to like say it out loud, or they have to have a stupid hero moment.
Yeah, and again, like to the other point, it helps that he is. Again, he's not. I can do everything. He's got a decent bit of experience working electrical stuff. He's a pilot, and he has a little bit of military training because he came from the Royal Air Force. But he was never a fighter pilot. He was never a. He's not a Navy SEAL who got busted down to being a cook on a submarine.
Right. He's not. He's a killer. He's a machine. You don't understand. You can't send him in the field that way.
Yeah, he's not any of those things, and.
Right. Colonel Troutman doesn't walk on scene at one point. Do you know what's out there? Do you understand what you're dealing with? None of that.
And again, it's to the strength of the movie that he's just himself. Again, he leans a little bit more on the guy with actual like combat military experience.
We're saying it, but not saying it. So let's just say it. Isn't it nice to have a penis? No, isn't it nice?
Some days.
Isn't it nice to see ordinary men rising to extraordinary circumstances and saving the day? You know the way movies used to be written?
Like, you miss the diehards of the world, right? And I don't mean like what Die Hard became, but again, like Bruce Willis is just a cop from New York in the wrong place at the wrong time in the first Die Hard movie, and he figures it out.
And took his shoes off. Took his shoes off when he shouldn't have.
It is better than being caught with your pants down, but
says you. But my point is, like, so much is extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. You don't go on that journey with them. Where movies used to be ordinary people that you could relate to in extraordinary circumstances and rising to the occasion. Lost Art.
It really is. You know, there's nothing ordinary about anything in a Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ever.
Yeah.
There's nothing ordinary about Maverick, the character. Like, he's a savant pilot.
I was going to say he's a Jedi.
Pretty much.
You're doing a Star Wars. It's not a Star Wars.
It's a Star Wars. I hate to break it to you.
What's that? That's Chewbacca celebrating. Darn it.
There's nothing ordinary about any of speaking of Star Wars, the most recent crop of Star Wars characters. Right. Everyone's descended from someone and was born with what? Like, no. If there was one thing, look, you and I disagree with a lot of people about The Last Jedi. You and I both tend to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I wish they'd left, much as I hate Jar Jar Abrams, I really do. And mystery box storytelling has ruined an entire generation of storytellers across all kinds of medium, right?
After this, please wrap up.
I will. They really should have left that Rey was a nobody.
Yeah, that was great. That bit with her and Adam Driver, where he's like, "You're nothing. You're nobody. Your parents were drunks. They sold you for drinking money."
Yeah,
that was it. The fact that they had to then make her a Palpatine because everyone has to be related to somebody, and then she changes her name to Skywalker. Like, really, you couldn't just go with Rey X. Like, you couldn't put glasses on. Like, we didn't land on Tatooine. Tatooine landed on us. That would have been fine.
Yeah. And which is actually kind of the point that should have been, that Star Wars used to be good about making, doesn't really matter who you are. Like, if you have the will and the strength of moral character and whatnot, you can be a hero. You can do heroic things. You can rise to the occasion. And yeah, Luke's a Jedi, but Han isn't. And Leia's value is not that, well, she's a princess. No, she's a competent, qualified leader. That's what makes, like, the rest of it it's not necessary. And sadly, we've lost that. You know, to Mark's point, seeing more or less the average person rising to extraordinary circumstances, more of this, please. Like, we need more of it.
Absolutely.
And no, Ant-Man doesn't qualify because Paul Rudd is a schlub.
No, Ant-Man does not qualify. And you know, he was also like a fucking master thief or some stupid shit.
Master might be stretching the point.
It was all of it. Well, first of all, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but most humans, given the Ant-Man suit, would not be able to operate it within a few hours of training. You know,
he took him more than a few hours. No, I'm not disagreeing with your general point. I am saying, like, let's be fair to the movie. They were planning and rehearsing for that heist for like weeks.
Yeah, my point being, like, when your Marvel everyday man is Scott Lang, there are no ordinary men. Everybody is extraordinary. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is made of just the most talented, most beautiful, most interesting people.
Your everyday man is, Kit Harington about to inherit the cursed blade.
Yeah. Peter Parker, just an average student who can, who finds various parts of a computer in a dumpster and is able to create Skynet. I'm done here. I fucking had it with Marvel. All right, moving on. Here we go.
You are not alone. But so last thing.
Yeah.
If you like 90s throwback action movies, this is going to be your jam.
Right. Here's the thing. And I said this on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. It's probably going to be like my theme for the year. If you want to see the theater industry thrive, you have to actually get out and go see movies. If you're watching us because you like Robert and I grabbing on each other's wieners and pulling, And whether or not you've seen the movie, you just enjoy our conversation.
Why?
Conversation.
Just why are you doing this?
Conversation. So if you like when Robert and I
trying to turn conversation into some kind of weird euphemism.
Have you not heard the Metal Hammer of Doom Extra when I reviewed Caliente, the clothing optional resort?
I have not.
Go back and listen to it, and you'll understand just how weird that was.
I don't need. No, I understand immediately when you said the title. Like, okay.
Anyway, for those of you who like to watch me and Robert have conversation with each other, but don't necessarily see the movies we talk about, if you do nothing else, go see Plane. Go see Plane before it goes PVOD, which I'm sure it will as before this podcast is done recording. Go see it before it ends up on a streamer or before Lionsgate becomes Netflix South. Just go, because we're gonna continue to lose the theater going experience. It's gonna Red Letter Media. This will be the last thing I say, and then I'm immediately hitting the button for the money.
Yeah.
Red Letter Media made a joke about how to save Star Wars, and the joke was make every movie $100 ticket. Make every single Star Wars movie $100 and like a Phantom event, like a theater exclusive. Because they'll make the money on the $100 tickets from the Chris Baileys of the world who love Star Wars without any kind of criticism, and they're willing to pay the $100 per ticket.
Well, that population of Star Wars has shrunk now that Abrams and
the point
Johnson
being
murdered it.
that's going to end up being the movies. Like, if you my kids going to see Hamilton this weekend, and those tickets were like the size of like a payment on a 2003 Buick, like they're astronomical, they're crazy. The live theater experience, the tickets are so much money, most people can't get them. This might change now, but like the price to get into Disney World is so astronomical. It's either a rich person's experience or nothing. Like normal people can't go anymore. You're going to have
it's something you spend like 2 to 3 years saving up for.
Right. That's going to be the theater experience if we're not careful, because I think there'll always be something, but it's going to end up being a novel event and not just part of the life experience that we go through. And I've already gone through this once with Toys R Us. I don't want to go through it again with theaters. We all grew up with Toys R Us, and then it was gone. And then there's like, 3.
To be fair, 2 of my brothers did not grow up with Toys R Us.
But that's the thing. We sat there, we had this whole conversation a few years ago about how we as 40 some odd year old men grew up with Toys R Us and what that experience was and what it meant to us and what it meant for our families going forward. And now it's gone. I don't want to be having the same conversation with the same guys in our 50s going, do you remember when you were a kid and you would go to the movies? Because no one else does anymore. And we've lost that bit of culture.
I need to stress this to everyone out there. Like,
we've
basically lost, I forget I believe they call it like third places in like sociology terms. Like, where do you see other people?
Right.
Work, church. What's the third? Like, there used to be, and we talk about, when they talk about third places, used to go bowling and you'd see other people and you could go walk
people
around
this podcast going TikTok, duh. No, we're talking in real life.
Yeah, like, and there's still that, I believe the seminal work on this is called Bowling Alone. I forget the author. But it's become true on a societal level about so much. Like, if we continue losing one of the very few communal places where we all congregate, like the death of the mall is kind of a big one. Like, people used to go, like, you just see people and you'd,
to the point where people felt they need to make movies about it, about just mall culture and going and the act of going to the mall. To wrap up, and then I'm going to hit the thing.
Yeah.
I bring this up because it's not going to be the Marvel movies, Lucasfilm, or DC movies. No. It's not going to be comic book movies that save the theater.
It's really
going to be planes. It's going to be movies like this, smaller budget, mid-tier movies, whether from whatever genre. And if people don't go see them, you're not going to have movies anymore. And that's one less place for people to be around people. And society is going to suffer if all our interactions among other people is through this fucking screen that we're doing right now.
if it's either through the screen or at work, because when you're at work, you're
right. And as much as I enjoy my weekly conversations with Robert, conversation. As much as I enjoy our weekly 2-hour conversation, I would much rather have done this in person. I would much rather sit with Rob, put a camera up, microphone, let him drink warm milk, whatever the fuck he does.
Water.
Have a beer, and let's do the same thing, but let's be present with each other in the room. We can't. I live in Tampa. He lives in Utah. But my point is, there's a lost energy when all you do is communicate virtually, and it's going to hurt the culture more than it's going to help. I see the value in it as a necessity, but when that's all there is with no other options, you're going to see the culture suffer for it. And with that said,
it is obliterating society.
It
really is.
It's funny that this is where we landed on our. It's like, did you hear the guys talk about the end of culture? They were talking about Plane, for fuck's sake. All right. With that said,
the last stand of the culture is Plane.
Folks, it's Plane or nothing at this point. All right,
save our movies. Go see Plane.
There you go. Save our movies. Go see Plane. Put it on a t-shirt, Mindy. And with that, or you know what? Mindy's out of a job now. Put it on a t-shirt, Kelsey. Save the movies. Go see Plane.
You have someone in person you can yell at now. Instead of trying to get Jesse to relay your request to his wife.
Yeah, now I don't have to go through Jesse to get his wife to do stuff. I can just get Kelsey to do it. All right. With that said, here comes the Kelsey.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
There we go.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Well, I said it before and I'll say it again. Y'all ain't got no culture.
On occasion, I understand why everyone thinks that the average moviegoer is dumb.
All right. On a budget of 25 on the high end, $25 million, this thing made $12 million. In the United States and Canada, Plane was released alongside House Party, which, hey, have you heard about House Party? Have you heard Robert Winfree of the Screaming Boy podcast? Have you heard about House Party?
That was not a good idea.
I really want someone to go get an actual donkey. Go get a real mule. Drag it into Zaslav's office and let the mule actually kick him through a window. Jesus Christ. Like, I can understand, like, from here on in, we're not making stuff exclusively for HBO Max. But the wholesale, like, everything's going to theaters and not thinking about, we're going to cancel Batgirl. We're going to put House Party in theaters. We're going to sleep with a prostitute with HIV. We're doing all the terrible things. Like, why? You're an educated businessman. How are you making decisions this bad?
House Party should have been exclusively on HBO Max to the extent that you should have spent money on it at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say the real answer was don't remake House Party. It was fine when it was Kid and Play years ago once.
Yeah, now it's like, hey, LeBron James, people know him, right? Did you not learn? Listen to me. Look right here. Look at me.
Listen to me.
Learn.
Put up my eyes. Listen to me.
Listen to me. Did you not learn from Space Jam 2? LeBron James is no good for your movie.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. Like, I was way too focused on House Party. We got to move this on, but I had to make fun of it. The House Party is not the problem. Who gives a fuck about House Party? Nobody, clearly. The problem is how badly this Discovery. When you think about the AOL Time Warner merger, a merger so bad they study it in business school now.
It is actually in the textbook.
And now we fast forward, 20-odd years later to 30. The Discovery. No, that was in the 2000s.
Was it?
Yeah. That was dude. They merged and WCW went out of business. It was 2001.
Okay, so
20
a little
years.
over 20.
Yeah. And then you look at the Discovery Warner Brothers merger, AOL Time Warner merger, and you look at the decisions that got made. You're like, how you people have business degrees. You people have like experience with this. How do you look at something like House Party Well, I get the argument of we're not making stuff for HBO Max anymore. This is a money killer. Sometimes you just got to let things happen. Like you made House Party for HBO Max. This was supposed to be one of those things to draw people to subscribe to it, or at least give it a month to see whatever. No one's going to the theater to see that thing, no matter what you did with it. But people would have watched it on television. People looking for a good time, looking for some laughs, not you and I, but there's a lot of people out there that looked at that House Party movie and be like, this is a fun thing to watch with my friends and family on a Saturday night. I would watch this. I will watch HBO. I will get HBO Max to watch this movie. No one. Look at me. Look at me. Look. No one is going to pay money in a theater experience to watch House Party. After the 20-minute segment we did on Please Save Our Movies, say go see Play and Save Our Movies, this is the opposite of that argument. No one's going to the movies to see fucking House Party. And the fact that they made the decision to put it in theaters because we're not supporting the stupid app anymore, we're not going to support the streamer. How is it all ones and tens with the decision making here? You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, there was no middle ground, middle of the road, sane solution to anything. It was everything is coming off. Well, hang on. We should look at each property individually and see where we can maximize their benefit. Nope. Fuck it. Burn it down, set it on fire, throw it out the window. Like, you're not drunk. You're not an angry man committing domestic violence. What is wrong with you, Zaslav?
In theory.
And then, but Velma we're going to keep. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they don't look at Velma as an insurance payment. Like, okay, we're going to lose money on this, right? But as long as it's around and as long as it's being made, right, this is our insurance against being accused of various things.
It's a racism shield. All right. In the U.S. and Canada, Plane was released alongside House Party and the wide expansion of A Man Called Otto. It was projected to gross about 7 to 10 million from over 3,000 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made about 3 million on its first day, including 435 from Thursday night previews. It went on to debut 10.2 million, finishing in 5th. Which brings us to the weekend that was. On the weekend of January 13th through the 15th, Avatar was the number one weekend, 5 weeks running. No shock there.
Right.
Megan is number 2, second week in a row.
Megan with pretty good hold, actually. Only a 40% drop your first week. That's actually quite good. I don't know who that's resonating with, but it is resonating. So,
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, currently a Golden Globe winner, from what I understand, and also on streaming. Came in 3rd, 4 weeks in a row. A Man Called Otto, and now in wide release.
Got its wide release,
yeah. Now at number 4, Plane debuted at 5, House Party 6. House Party is fucking embarrassing.
The drop from 5 to 6 there is really embarrassing. Plane will probably be able to squeak out turn a decent profit. Nothing world shaking.
Yeah, certainly not going to save Lionsgate. Black Panther dropped from 5 to 7. The Whale 7 to 8. Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Crack 6 to 9. Terre Viraga debuted at 10. Skinamarink, number 11. The Devil's Conspiracy debuted at 14. Saint Omer, the greatest saint of all, from Neon Pictures, debuted at number 24.
Sure.
All right, worldwide, let's go back to 2022 and check in on our good friends, Avatar: The Way of the Waiter. Currently at 1.9, overtaking Top Gun Maverick. Everything just got moved down. No significant changes there. In the year of our Lord, 2023, Plane, number 1 movie worldwide.
For some reason, we have still... I don't know why Megan isn't listed here.
Did Universal piss somebody on the big P in the Cheerios of somebody at fucking Box Office Mojo?
Hang on. Go back to 2022 for just a sec, if you would, please.
Yeah.
Is Megan here? Like, did it technically get a limited release in 2022?
Yep.
There it is. Okay. So, with a current worldwide box office total of 94 million, it would be the top movie of 2023.
So, release date, January 26, 2023. Was it released anywhere in 2022? Not in Europe, in Africa. Oh, hang on, France. Ah,
So
motherfucker.
it's France that's screwing everything up.
Frank,
December,
you
Dece-
dirty, you dirty
Dec-
beignets.
December 28th, 2022, in
Mother,
France,
motherfuck the French, man.
and this is ruining our ability to
Oh,
appropriately
look at that.
calculate this.
Dirty Mexicans. They're in on the plot.
December 29th in Mexico.
Oh, you dirty motherfuckers. Every
Okay.
problem we've ever had came from Mexico. I'm just going to say
Or
that right here,
France.
right now. All right, nobody. See, everyone in Asia Pacific is behaving themselves. They all waited.
The Romance languages are the ones that are ruining us.
They got the goddamn Mexico and France. See, but even in Italy waited until January 5th.
I'm still saying what I'm saying.
I'm not going to argue with you. Yeah, Mexico and France fucked us.
Okay, so that's why.
Yep.
That's what.
All right.
For those of us who were curious about that, Megan technically
It's a 2022 movie.
in 2 countries
I guess that counts.
that no one cares about.
Can you imagine, like, if you're like at Universal, you're like, oh, we have this great shot of being in the top 10 2023. Actually, you're 2022. Are you shitting me? Who did this to us? And like the guy walks in, he's got a beret on, black and white striped shirt. He's currently miming, like, oh, get out of here, Frenchie. They're like, oh, I have ruined your film.
And behind him is Floyd Mayweather in the sombrero. With the poncho.
This whole bit's racist. All right, moving on.
No, it's funny because Tyson Fury too. Like I need small and tall. Like you got Floyd Mayweather down here, and you got Tyson Fury way up here. But they're both wearing because they've both come out dressed in the Mexican attire. I need them both together dressed in their Mexican attire. a British guy and a black man, both wearing a sombrero and the poncho.
Perfect. Plane is the #1 movie worldwide with 12 million. Then House Party with a paltry 4 million. And by the way, neither one with a foreign release, it looks like, outside of Canada.
At the moment.
Operation Fortune Ruse de Guerre. I want to check this out for a second. Now you got me curious.
All
right, so it's been released January 5th and 6th throughout Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Released January 5th and 6th in Mexico and Colombia, and in Hong Kong and New Zealand. Not released in the United States. So there's the problem there. Released all over the rest of the world, not released in America.
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. With no release date in sight, as near as I can tell. Again, though I suspect that's going to get sold to a streamer the way it's looking.
I'm sure it'll be streaming somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Father and Soldier, #4, unknown title. Sure. A Doctor Strange.
Roaring start.
A Doctor Strange title at #6. Detective Conan, Hibera, Iman Gatari, Black Iron Mystery Train. Sure. Romina VTM, Walter, and then coming at #10, Skinamarink. Alrighty. Fuck you, it's January. Speaking of which,
Off to a roaring start to the cinematic year of 2023 we are.
Yeah. So next week, at this day at our normally scheduled time, we're gonna get caught up on some Netflix movies that came out at the end of December, like we have been doing the last few years. We're gonna do Glass Onion, a Knives Out movie.
I am going to enjoy pissing all over that.
But we could have talked Missing, and Robert could have killed himself live on the air. Like, I saw the trailer for Missing, and I'm like, I would never put that. Look, there's you talk, maybe jokingly, maybe passive aggressively, about the things I make you do. This is why you and Alexis are like trauma bonded. Like, he makes us. I would never make you watch Missing.
I do it more for the bit.
Sure. I would never make you watch Missing. I'm not that cruel. I'm not, and nor am I interested in that movie.
I've seen way too many movies that are like, hey, we'll composite together footage from FaceTime and Google searches. Like, I've seen a bunch of those, and none of them are all that good.
No, watching people sell photo on screen is not that interesting. All right, so that's the 20th. The 27th, we've got Distant, which is another one I was not going to subject you to. It's from Universal. It's got Anthony Ramos, Naomi Scott, and Zachary Quinto of Star Trek fame. I don't care enough, and I'd rather do the Netflix movie A Pale Blue Eye with Christian Bale. And then we have Fear, which is a horror movie with Ruby Modine, assuming she's a relative of some description of Matthew Modine.
Decent enough chance.
Okay. And then February 3rd, we finally get to movies that matter. We have the new M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong, Knock at the Cabin, plus and counter programming that for all you old ladies and Patriot fans out there, 80 for Brady. The girl I took to plane, I was like, hey, and I kind of nudged her. I was like, hey, you wanna go see Knock at the Cabin with me? I got to see it for my podcast. She was like, no, but will you take me to go see 80 for Brady? So instead of doing M. Night Shyamalan, you have to now do 80 for Brady because that's the thing the girl wants to see.
I'm not touching that with.
I'll take the Kelsey. It's fine. I'm just kidding. We're gonna do Knock at the Cabin because we always do an M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong.
I need to read the book before we review it, but yeah. By the way, just for the record.
Yeah.
This is in fact based on a book that is not getting credit because Shyamalan is kind of a dirtbag.
All right. So February 10th, we've got Consecration in wide release. It looks like from IFC Film. The re-release of Titanic because fuck you, I'm James Cameron.
I mean, to be fair, he's got an excuse. It is the 30th anniversary. Or 25th. Which is
okay, so we're not reviewing
25th.
Anything coming out that weekend because there's nothing. However, that the week that we would
we really should review Titanic, Mark.
What we're gonna do is the 2023 Best Picture contenders because by then they should have announced who they are. And then the 17th, I believe, is Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Probably.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, I saw the other. I had seen the original trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp. I did not see the second one until it was in front of this movie.
So,
are we really, people? Are we really doing our central tension being Scott Lang wants his 5 years back?
God, I hope not. I haven't watched the second. I was telling this to Andrew. I don't watch trailers online anymore because I go to the movies enough to where I'd rather just wait and see them on the big screen.
So did you see the second trailer for Quantumania in front of this one?
No, maybe. I don't think I remember because I asked Andrew how MODOK looks and he was like, not great.
No, he doesn't look great at the moment.
All right. Just to kind of wrap up this.
The big thing here is like Kang's going to be doing you will help me escape from the quantum realm, and with my powers, my vast, undefinable powers, I can give you back the 5 years you lost in the quantum realm when everyone else was snapped, with your daughter who's now become a delinquent and is being locked up in jail. And don't you understand? He's going to be tempted to please.
And February 24th, it's the Top Gun Maverick of 2023, everyone. Cocaine Bear, baby.
I'm with you, man. I hope that movie does very well. Look, you, me, and like Jason and Jesse have spent the last couple of days trying to spin up the drug animal cinematic universe. Like, okay, so the cocaine is for the bears.
Yep. Meth is for the gators.
Well, crocodiles and alligators both. They get all the meth, so we figured cows were the stoners.
Yep. Cows gets pot.
We don't have a heroin one yet.
Yeah, we were. I was thinking like flamingos or swans or something because I was very caught up in that like 70s heroin chic thing with the beautiful gal who shoots heroin and then wanders out of a 30-story window. But that neglects the entire rest of the population currently fucking using heroin. There isn't a beautiful girl from the 70s. Anyway,
we have started out as a beautiful girl from the 70s, but now it's Bubbles.
I think we've decided that Avatar is probably not getting unseated by any new movie coming out until maybe Knock at the Cabin, but definitely by Quantumania.
That sounds about. I mean, look, we joke because Cocaine Bear is after Quantumania. Yeah, Knock at the Cabin has an outside shot, very outside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that point, it's just like
does M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong like command an audience anymore?
I doubt it. I mean, we
hang on. What show? Hang on 1 second. Peanut Gallery's talking. What show are you watching? Okay, so I mean, maybe Servant has an audience, and that's an M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong show.
If you say so. Never heard
Kelsey
of it.
says so, and Kelsey's never wrong.
Literally never heard of it.
All right, moving on. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time.
Oh.
Put the women and children to bed. Here we go. It's the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Make good movies and you'll be rewarded in theory. The critics seem to like it, 75%. The audience was like, yeah, more of this, please. Let's have conversation with it. 94%.
The problem with the critical score there is look at the number of reviews.
110.
Now,
everyone went to go see House Party.
Hang on. Again, 110 is nothing. Is certainly nothing to sneeze at in the grand scheme of things. But I think my favorite series of these.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? I forget. I think it was a television series because they'll do these by TV series as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the tomato meter score remained somewhat consistent. Like it started lower and actually got higher, but the number of reviews went from like thousands to hundreds by the time the third or fourth season.
Hang on.
So you
I
do
want
need
to
to pay attention
one
to that.
sec. Let's look at Velma.
Oh, must we? I don't want to.
Let's look
I
at
don't want
Velma.
to. No.
Oh no. We have to. Oh my god.
Hasn't changed.
55 from the critics and 6% audience. So it's clearly review bombed.
Has not clearly by all the racists.
But it doesn't tell you how many. It doesn't. Did they take away the fucking reviews?
They're hiding it. They are.
That's fucking hysterical, bro. We couldn't even do this if we wanted to. That's great. Oh, way to protect it.
That's funny.
Oh, Rotten Tomatoes, you're not biased at all.
Now wait, because like the logic is going to be, well, we're waiting for the full season to come out before we start publishing.
Bullshit. All right, House Party.
30
and 59. Oof.
So nobody likes that either.
30 reviews. Okay, so I'm wrong. The less people reviewed fucking House Party than they did Plane. Yeah. Terrific. All right, back to Plane. Here, Plane. Alrighty.
Hey, wait. Where's our blurb? Is that not a blurb?
Oh, whoops. I got so caught up in the other thing. Plane starts a standard action adventure course with its cruising altitude just a few miles above direct-to-video. But with Gerard Butler in the cockpit, thriller enthusiasts will still find this a fun flight.
Someone needs to find whoever wrote that or whatever AI did it and kick them repeatedly in the crotch. Like, look at the references in that. There's like, you have what, a sentence there, and you have 3 or 4 bad airplane jokes.
Yeah. All right. Going to Rachel Leishman of the Mary Sue. The Mary Sue, Robert Winfree. Truly, just one of those movies that is fun and something to suspend your disbelief with for a while.
Look, you make a decent movie, even idiot reviewers get it right on occasion. Like us.
Steven Silver of Tilt Magazine, former newspaper. the very definition of a January ass movie. Tilt Magazine,
sir.
Everyone. You have not suffered the way we have suffered through Fuck You.
Yeah.
January. I don't.
You know what you are, buddy? You are that like guy who exists in the army. You're the guy who exists like back at the command center and then claims you've seen action. No, man. Mark and I have been front line on this one. You ain't shit.
Let's go back to 2018, the year of our Lord.
Yes, let's.
So, January of 2018, I saw Proud Mary. We didn't review it.
I can't believe you saw it.
I had Movie Pass.
That's true. Oh, yeah, back when that was going to be remember when that was going to be a thing?
We didn't review a single movie in the month of January of 2018. Our choices were Insidious, The Strange One, Stratton, Sweet Country, The Commuter, Proud Mary, Act of Violence, Freak Show, Humor Me, Vizanti, Mary and the Witch's Flower, 12 Strong, Den of Thieves, Forever My Girl, The Maze Runner, The Death Cure, The Insult, and Please Stand By.
Yeah,
Not a single movie in the month of January.
That's pretty much all crap.
Yep. 2019, in the year of our Lord. Last year before film died. Escape Room, which we did not review. Rust Creek, American Hangman, A Dog's Way Home, The Upside, Replicas, After Darkness, Glass. Glass we reviewed.
We did review Glass. Close,
The Standoff of Sparrows Creek, The Final Wish, The Kid Would Be King, Serenity, Iron Mother, and The Vast of Night. One fucking movie. One in the entire month of January. 2020, before the world ended.
Yeah, there was still a full schedule for January of 2020.
Yep. There was the Grudge remake, which we did not review.
Ugh.
There was Underwater, Like a Boss, Three Christ, Inherit the Viper, The Sonata, The Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. None of those. We did review Bad Boys for Life.
I remember it and it hurts.
We reviewed The Gentleman, but not when it was in theaters. And lastly, there was the Rhythm section, which we consistently made fun of, but never actually reviewed.
Dude.
I think because of the trailer, I was obsessed with that movie.
Yeah, that movie got play with you because, like, doesn't it have that stupid song in the trailer?
Yes. It was a cover of something that I liked. Don't lie to me. Tell me where
last night?
Did you sleep last night? Kelsey, don't lie to me. Tell me where did you sleep last night? The Rhythm section. There was Gretel and Hansel, and the assistant.
Yeah, but this guy, like, no, this is the definition of a January ass movie, buddy.
You have not seen January ass. 2021. I mean, you know, what can one say?
Yeah,
movies have not come back yet. They won't really come back until March of that year. And then 2022, in the year of our Lord, we had the 355. Say it again, buddy. You have not suffered the way we have suffered.
You have not seen, for some reason, the director and editor decided that a slow-mo pan of Jessica Chastain shooting a clearly fake gun without even, like, blanks being loaded, audibly, like, you can see her mouth going bang with each pull of the triggers. You can see it. It's in the movie.
There was Scream, which was fine, but then there was Redeeming Love and The King's Daughter. And then, like, nothing else the rest of the month.
Yeah,
so,
again, this guy's an idiot.
Yeah, no. So, all right. Moving on.
Plane is much better than your average January.
Happy New Year, friend!
Hey!
Hello. Let's have conversation with Kevin Carr. Are you ready?
I refuse to do so based on how you euphemistically use that word.
No, let's have a conversation with Kevin Carr.
Look,
Kevin...
I will guard the door, but that's as far as I'm going with this.
That's how Randy got in trouble, by the way. But in The Wire, season 4. Kevin Carr, fat guy at the movies. Surprisingly well made. This Gerard Butler action thriller paints by the numbers, but is very good at painting by numbers. And I can see Russia from my house.
Okay, buddy. Let me save you some. Hang on.
How is Plane too much movie for Kevin Carr?
Here's how you phrase this, okay? Because I've heard this descriptor before. The phrase is, the movie paints by numbers, but it uses the right colors. This is how we say this. I heard that same descriptor of the Italian Job remake movie and thought, yeah, that's a decent enough metaphor. Save that and use it on occasion.
All right, James Berardinelli of Real Views. Get it? Real Views, top critic. Real, R-E-E-L. Get it? Plane would have been an adequate way to waste a couple of hours lounging on the couch and munching salty snacks. But that's racist. Why does it have to be salty? Why can't we do pita bread and help me? Hummus. Why can't we do pita bread and hummus? Why does it have to be salty snacks, James?
Because hummus sucks.
Hummus does not suck. But as a multiplex draw, not quite, even if you bring the salty snacks along. Ugh.
Stop paying that man.
Former ex Mrs. Winfree, Monique Jones of Common Sense Media.
How in the world did you arrive at that?
Because I've decided I have a fetish for you. That's not your fetish, it's my fetish for you.
Stop fetishizing me, Mark.
Never. Blaine says nothing new and reinforces painful cliches. Please marry this woman and have conversation. Blaine says nothing new and reinforces painful cliches, making it feel more like a film from the 1980s or 90s than 2023.
How is that a bad thing?
Oh, she's mad. She's mad this movie feels old and not new.
It doesn't say anything new. Shut up.
She's mad.
Nothing.
I bet she liked Velma a lot.
One would assume.
Yeah. This is
It's
my
gotta
favorite one.
Say something. Oh, get bent.
This is my favorite review so far. Eli Glasner of CBC News. Plane fall. People fight. Critic happy.
I feel like your son could have structured that better.
How did that get on Rotten Tomatoes? And here we are toiling in obscurity.
Because he works for an outlet that has comic book in its name.
Fair. Nick Johnson of Vanyaland. You know, we were talking recently about where would you want to live? Would you want to live in Star Wars, or would you want to live on Pandora or Hogwarts? How about we live in Vanyaland? Robert Winfree of the Screaming Boy
I don't know
podcast.
what that is.
Neither do I. But Nick Johnston, resident of Vanyaland, Plane lives and dies on Butler and Coulter's shoulders, and both do a solid job with what they've been given.
Accurate.
Way to state the obvious.
I mean, look, I'll take stating the obvious accurately over it doesn't say anything new and feels like it's from 20 years ago.
Isaac Feldberg of Above the Line, top critic. Coulter counterbalances all his brawny physicality with a grimly utilitarian sense of humor. Moments of despair, skulking around corners with a sledgehammer, at least at my screening, drew bigger cheers than Butler's vein-popping cockpit performance.
I don't know why that was chosen as your pullout. Why that was the excerpt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, the guy doing more action hero stuff will get a bigger reaction than, the guy piloting the plane as a general rule. I'm not quite sure why that doesn't help inform your overall impression of the film.
Nick Allen of RogerEbert.com, top critic. This was this might have been too much movie for him. The biggest problem with Plane throughout it is that it isn't Wilder. It does not revel appropriately in its open dumbness. I hope this guy gave like a fresh rating to House Party.
Yeah, you're not understanding the purpose of these kinds of movies, buddy. You're the kind of idiot who goes, "Boy, John Wick 3 was the best of them," and we all just pat you on the head and go, "Okay, go spin and flap in the corner."
Taylor Baker, a drink in the movies. Drink it in. Slurp it up. Don't you drop a drip on daddy's carpet, though. Don't ever drop a drip.
I better not miss a drop when I'm in this bed servicing the president.
The very few times Plane leans into being an action film like the sledgehammer sequence is extremely fun. The reason it's agonizing to watch is the awful dialogue, paper-thin characters, and intelligent, insulting cutaways.
Again, the cutaways, I agree, are a bit of a problem. But the rest of that, no, this movie doesn't insult your intelligence throughout any of the other stuff. And the characters aren't that thin. They're not, again, none of you guys are Hamlet, but come on.
I have two left here.
All right.
David Fear of Rolling Stone, top critic, former magazine. Plane is, in essence, the Frontier Airlines of action films. It's cut right to a fault, makes you endure a lot of unpleasantness on the way to its final destination, and still leaves you with the distinct feeling you didn't even get what you paid for.
I'm going to assume Frontier Airlines is going to sue him over this.
I hope. The Battle of the Century, Rolling Stone versus Frontier Airlines.
I would pay money to see that.
Former ex-Mrs. Winfree, Rachel Wagner of Rachel'sReviews.net.
I don't believe this is ever a woman you've tried to associate me with before.
Nope, I'm finding new ones. Yes, the former ex-Mrs. Robert Winfree says, "Let's just say this film comes in for a solid landing. Beat her for not cooking the meatloaf all the way through."
No.
That's it. That's all you're gonna say.
Do I need to say anything else about your attempts to employ me at hypothetical domestic violence?
Well, no, not that. Her stupid review.
It's not great, and again, is it painfully stupid to go, "Hey, plane metaphor"? Yes, it is. Is it, somehow like wrong and stupid? No, it's not actually both wrong and stupid. It's just kind of stupid.
All right, folks, that is our critical review. I think that's good enough for government work.
We found one. It's like it doesn't say anything new, and the negative stereotypes about parts of the world that are actually dangerous.
Well, last night I had an aneurysm, and that aneurysm was called Ronnie Adams, trying to learn how to use StreamYard. They planned this review of Tulsa King for like months now, maybe a month. And I asked at the time, I'm like, make sure you get hooked up with StreamYard. Make sure you have everything set. Do you need any help? Nope, we got it. Okay. You guys still doing it next week? Yep, 9:00. Okay. So at 9:15 on a Monday, I come home from fondue with my family, and there's Ronnie. I don't know how to do anything. I need codes. I don't know what I'm doing. Help. You ever just want to throw everything in your living room, including the people in it, out the window in just anger?
Who do you think you're speaking to?
So Ronnie, so here's my impression of me trying to teach Ronnie how to use StreamYard at the last minute before he has to start recording. I put the packet on the glass. Ronnie says, "What glass?" "The little glass dish in the microwave, Ronnie." "Oh." And then I told him I shut the door. He goes, "What door?" "The door to the microwave, Ronnie. It's right there. It's right fucking there, man."
You know how much effort it takes to make a microwave work without the door on? You can do it if you know how to jerry-rig it, but it's hard.
I wish you were on TikTok. You would fully get that reference.
I more or less understand what's going on there with your frustration.
I might act out my TikTok. Well, they got it done. Between these two college-educated individuals, they've managed to get done a podcast. So good for them. So shortly after I'm done here, we will post. It's on YouTube now, but the audio will be posted for Tulsa King Season 1, starring Sylvester Stallone on Paramount Plus.
I need to watch that, actually.
Yeah, I've heard it's quite good. Tomorrow at 10:00, myself, Gavin Napier, and Alexis Haina, assuming they both don't kill each other in the middle of it, are going to review Kaleidoscope. I watched it in sequential order because, as Robert Winfree has criticized about me, I am married to lineal structure telling. So
you really are a slave to traditional storytelling structure. You don't like anything that plays around with it.
No, I had a real problem with The Witcher for that reason.
There's a number of Monty Python movies that you have a problem with because they don't conform to traditional narrative structure.
A little bit. Anyway,
you don't like Ghostbusters because it doesn't have narrative, because it doesn't conform to traditional narrative structure. You're like, I don't get it. They have a business. What does this have to do with Zool? And there's this whole part in the middle where I don't get it. They're just busting ghosts.
Paul Feig did so much better understanding that material, and it really spoke to me, especially the constant jokes about the cold soup.
The joke wasn't about the temperature of the soup.
Oh, it was not enough wontons. That's what it was.
It was the amount of wontons in the soup. And
that was highly relatable. Do you know how many times I've gotten wonton soup with not enough wontons?
No, Mark, please tell me. How many times have you had a bunch of wontons?
So many. All right.
No, seriously, anyway, how many times have you ordered wonton soup and been dissatisfied with the ratio of wonton to soup?
That's between me and my Asian food delivery service.
You don't actually have an answer, do you?
No. Will you please let me do my plugs? You
brought this up. You brought up that abomination. I'm going to punish you for it.
You're about to get muted. Anyway, we're gonna review Kaleidoscope tomorrow night.
So Mark watched it you watched it in sequential order. Alexis Haina went in chromatic order. Do we know what Gavin did?
The order in which it was published.
Fair enough.
So I think his ends with white. His ends with the heist. All right. And then allegedly, Ronnie Adams is threatening to do another podcast this week. It's the return of the Screaming Boy podcast. The future of D&D is what he'll talk about. Saturday is Everyone Loves a Bad Guy Day. This one is a re-air from 2013-ish, I guess. And this is Everyone Loves a Bad Guy Oz. This is the one that I'm on because I definitely talk Oz with you.
I believe it's 2013. I should have put the original air date in the description of that.
I'm sure you did. I just didn't look yet.
That's
And then Sundays is for Metal. That's right. Metal Hammer of Doom re-airing our Amon and Mark Deceiver of the Gods review from around that time. And then next week, assuming I watch all this shit in time, we've got Doom Patrol Season 4, Glass Onion, Resident Alien Season 2, Part 2, and Generation Kill 'Em All. That's what I've got going on. I got to go pee. Do your plugs.
Well, much like Mark, I will be back here to review. He forgot to mute himself as he gets up. That's par for the course. We will be reviewing Glass Onion. Let me give you a quick preview of my thoughts on that particular film. It's still enjoyable, but it is nowhere near as good as Knives Out. And we'll get into the specifics next week, so please do come back for that. As for my other plugs, I cover professional wrestling and mixed martial arts for 411mania.com, AEW's Dark Elevation on Monday, MLW on Thursday, WWE SmackDown on Friday, and UFC events on Saturdays. So the MLW review was delayed last week because I got called to do a couple of other things, and then there was house-related issues. So that didn't happen until Friday because I got to it after I got done with SmackDown. This week's MLW review should be up in a much more timely fashion. I'm hoping that I don't have water in the basement again because that sucked. So be on the lookout for any and all of that. Saturday is UFC 283. They're back in Rio de Janeiro for the first time since 2020. Well, Brazil for the first time since 2020 because the last event they held before COVID shut them down for a month and a half was in Brasilia. And now we're back in Brazil. Decent enough card. If you want a full preview of it, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast on Sundays, Sunday evenings, Monday mornings. This last week was a review of UFC on ESPN Plus 75, a preview of UFC 283, and a discussion of the crazy news of the week, specifically UFC heavyweight champion, former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou leaving the UFC. He is now a free agent. The UFC has stripped him of the title, and the heavyweight title will now be decided in a fight between John Jones and Cyril Gane at UFC 285.
I'm so pissed. I really wanted to watch that on pay-per-view live. I will be at the Dropkick Murphys that night. And no, before anyone suggests, I actually want to go see the Dropkick Murphys. I've been waiting a while for this show. But, why doesn't the UFC ever call me and Paul? And, in the WWE, why don't they contact Paul and I and put stuff on nights that we're both available?
I can't imagine why, Mark.
And Paul and I have made this request of them several times, by the way.
It boggles the mind that the billion-dollar companies don't consult you about their scheduling.
You're not wrong.
Just doesn't make any sense.
We should have a conversation.
So, I talk about Francis Ngannou leaving, as well as the Dana White turning himself into a meme again. And you know what? This one I hope never dies. And I mean that. Did you hear this for the record, Mark?
What?
There's going to be no actual punishment levied at Dana White for, getting into a fist fight with his wife.
He can get charges in Vegas when it happened?
I believe they were in Mexico.
He can get charged. Oh, well, never mind. There's no laws in Mexico.
There are laws in Mexico. We've been very close to that line too much tonight. So when discussing this more seriously, I forget the location, but to the best of my knowledge, at the moment there are no criminal charges. The UFC's not doing anything. Endeavor's not doing anything. None of it's doing anything. Well, and his response when asked was, here's my punishment. I get to walk around for the rest of my life labeled as that guy. So now fighters and other personalities are coming out going, should I really have been suspended and had my win overturned for that drug test failure? Shouldn't I just have to wear the sign for the rest of my life that I failed a drug test? Or, I've illegally streamed every UFC pay-per-view ever, but shouldn't that just be my punishment that I'm known as the guy who illegally streamed every UFC pay-per-view ever? Isn't this enough of my punishment?
We're at the 2-hour mark.
I know. So, again, I hope those memes never die because of all the boneheaded things. So if you want my full take on any and all of that and other news of the week, the 4-on-1 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, I will talk your ear off about professional combat sports action. So tune in for that if you're so inclined. Next week, we talk Glass Onion, why it doesn't work, and Ryan Johnson getting to just be ungodly self-indulgent.
All right, folks. Speaking of ungodly self-indulgent, this has been Damn You Hollywood. He is Robert Winfree. I am Mark Radulich, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified. Be well, be safe, and behave.